Hello and welcome back to 100 Yards of Football, Sports Talk Radio. I'm your producer, Jeremiah Long, and joining me to talk about this week's NCAA matchup between Kansas and Baylor is our host with the most, Mr. Logan Landers. How's it going, man?
What's up, Jeremiah? Talking some amazing college football here between two schools who people primarily think about with basketball. They're two great programs, but we're here talking about it on the gridiron. They got a great game this upcoming week.
Absolutely. And for everybody watching our show or listening to our podcast, we just want to say thank you. You sharing with your friends, family, colleagues about our show, 100 Yards of Football, is the reason we grow every single week. So make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and the notification bell. And if you're over on our podcast, give us a little review, and just a little thumbs up, or give us some, creative expression of how you feel about the show. And it could be as simple as, hey guys, I'm watching the show, full send. And, we appreciate that so much, and it helps us to grow here at 100 Yards of Football. Well, Mr. Logan Landers, it's week 8. Kansas City Jayhawks, Baylor Bears. What do we have to look forward to from this matchup?
Let's talk about it. In the battle of the Big 12, Kansas right now currently sitting at a record of 5-2. Meanwhile, Baylor are at 500 with a 3-3 record. This past week, Kansas went up against Oklahoma, a game I predicted and one I got very wrong. But hey, that is just the nature of the game. Sometimes you get it dead on, sometimes you're off by a mile, and I was off by a mile on this one. I thought Kansas was going to win big. Not the case. They lost to the Oklahoma Boomer Sooners by a score of 52-49. So Oklahoma went from the week prior not scoring any points to scoring 52. Don't you just love the nature of college football, Jeremiah? It changes every week. You never know what to expect. But in the game against Oklahoma, the Jayhawks, like I said, they put up a good fight. They scored 42 points. That's going to win you a lot of ball games, but that was not the case against Oklahoma. In the ball game, quarterback Jason Bean, 16-27, 265 yards, throwing 9.8 average, 4 touchdowns, but he did have issues with keeping the pocket clean, with giving away turnovers. He had 2 interceptions on the day that hurt him. The running game, decent overall, could have maybe got a little bit more, but overall not too bad. Devin Neal, the running back, 12 carries for 84 yards, a 7.0 average, got in the end zone once. And also the quarterback, Jason Bean, not afraid to get it up the legs either, 10 rushes for 41. On the receiving core, 2 guys really stood out. Lawrence Arnold was the first, 5 catches for 113 yards, averaged 22.6 per catch. He was definitely the deep threat all day. Also had 2 touchdowns. And the other guy we can't forget about, Mason Fairchild, led the way with 6 catches, and right behind Arnold with 106 yards, a 17.7 average. Also not to be outdone, he got in the end zone twice. Now, the defense is what really hurt this team against Oklahoma, right? They gave up over 400 yards passing, close to 300 yards running, so they just could not get much going at all. They couldn't stop that high-powered Sooner offense. But leading the way in terms of tackles was Kenny Logan, 14 overall to lead the team. Where they struggled, though, only 1 sack on the ball game. Give that one to Craig Young. 3 tackles for loss, only 2 passes defended. Kenny Logan also got an interception. But in the end, man, whenever Oklahoma came out the gates just ready to go, right, 14 points in the first, 21 points in the second, 14 in the third. They shut them down in the third, only gave out 3 points. But by that time, it was already a ball game. It was a closed case, and Kansas took the loss in that one, like I said, having their record fall to 5-2. Meanwhile, this past week for Baylor, their luck didn't get much better at all. This is also their second loss in a row, along with Kansas. And Baylor lost to West Virginia, the Mountaineers, 43-40 in a very, very close ball game. Obviously, just won by a field goal at the very end with less than a minute to play. So West Virginia pulled it out, and a tough, tough loss for the Baylor Bears. But in that game, quarterback Blake Shapen did get banged up a little bit, left the game for a little while with a head injury. It looked like he's going to be fine to go for next week. But in the game, 14-22 passing, 326 yards, a 14.8 average, so he was definitely airing that ball out. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had a phenomenal day. Kyron Drones, the backup, came in, did a nice job also, 7 of 14, right at 50% for 95 yards. Had a touchdown, 1 interception, but overall not too bad for a role that he wasn't expecting to fill in the ball game. The running game, a lot of guys got a lot of touches. Richard Reese led the way with 13 carries for 57 yards and a 4.4 average. As a team, they ran it 35 times for 169 yards and 2 scores. Those coming from Quallen Jones and Ben Sims. The top receiver was one you can definitely look at on a stat sheet, and he just stands out to you. That goes to Gavin Holmes. Holmes had 7 catches, 210 yards, 30.0 average. I had to make sure that was correct, and it is. Had a touchdown, and behind him was Drake Dabney doing his best, right? 5 catches, which is close, but only 66 yards. So there was really just one guy they were looking at to get things done, and a great game for Gavin Holmes. The defense, like I said, they struggled a little bit, gave up over 40 points. Dylan Doyle led the way with 10 tackles on the way. But somewhere they also struggled along with Kansas. They didn't have any sacks in the ballgame. You got to get some pressure on the QB. You got to get some tackles for loss. They had only 4 as a team. They had 1 interception thanks to Dylan Doyle. But overall, like I said, at the end, last-minute field goal with less than a minute to play, just a heartbreaking loss. So looking at this game, this upcoming week here, this following Saturday, 2 teams who are coming off 2 back-to-back weeks of losing. So someone's going to break their dry spell. Someone's going to get the win this upcoming week. And I'm going to give this W to the Kansas Jayhawks. I predicted them to win last week. I'm going to rock with them again. Let's see if my prediction comes true and if they can get it done. So I'm going to go with Kansas getting the win in this one, 34, and Baylor 28. It's going to be a high-powered, high offensive matchup between these 2 Big 12 teams who struggled with the defense a little bit last week. I can see that continuing over into this game in a high-scoring affair. But overall, Jeremiah, I'm going with the Jayhawks to win this upcoming ball game.
That is what's up. The Jayhawks need to do their thing. We also want to see if Baylor can continue to grow. These, like you said, these are teams that are traditionally associated with basketball, but we love our college football, so we want to see it grow. We want to see each of these teams start to grow to prominence in their own way. So thank you so much for everyone watching. What do you think? What do you think the final score will be? And what do you think the keys to the game are for Kansas or for Baylor? Put it in the comments over on YouTube or over on Facebook. If you're listening to us on our podcast, though, thank you. And if you're not listening to us, come and join us on our podcast. Our podcast is 100 Yards of Football, just like on our video version. And you can listen on Spotify, which is the way that I usually listen, or you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Google. If you have an Android phone, that's a real easy way. You can just go over and pull up your Google podcast, or you can even just Google 100 Yards of Football podcast, and it'll pop up with the Google link. But you can also listen to any of your other favorite podcast radio stations, such as iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon, Overcast, and more. We are here on every platform. We put out new podcasts pretty much every day, and it's the heart of the football season. We've got your back. Mr. Logan Landers is going to be coming with the most informative things about football that you can imagine, including our game previews, but also our other host, Mr. Vincent Turner and Mr. Bobby Butler will be coming with that heat with individual episodes about our history specials, interviews with classic players, and more. We do a lot of great things over at 100 Yards of Football. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Logan Landers, for that NCAA Week 8 preview of the Kansas Jayhawks versus the Baylor Bears. And we will be right back with another live episode right after this. Stay tuned.